Hello, everybody, and welcome to In the Down World. I'm your host, Georgette Taylor, and as always, I'm excited that you're joining us today. We have such an amazing guest. Her name is Sherri Roberts-Lumpkin, and she is the founder and director of the Ragbaby Exchange. The Ragbaby Exchange is a nonprofit organization that is committed to building self-esteem in women and children through doll making. And I'm so excited that she's joining us today. Thank you for joining us today on In the Down World, Sherri.
Thank you for having me, Georgette.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you about what you're doing and the things that you're helping young women and children be able to build self-esteem through dolls. I think that's really so important. So I just wanted you to be able to share a little bit about yourself, and also maybe tell a little bit about your journey and how you got started to creating Rag Baby Exchange.
Great. So, yes, I loved playing with dolls for a long time as a kid,
Mhm.
maybe longer than most people. I
Nah,
also,
probably not. Not for this group. Definitely never too
good.
long.
Yes, yes, that's great. So I ended up, my mom gave me this little kit that was a Singer sewing machine and a doll, a Barbie doll, and it was in a case that was painted with flowers. And when you open it up, the machine was on one side, and the other side was like a little closet. And I started making clothes for my dolls. Like I actually taught myself how to sew,
Oh,
even though my
nice.
mom was an excellent seamstress. She would help me with other things that I didn't understand, but basically, I taught myself how to make clothes that way. And I also would make dolls when I go away for the summer with my grandmother, who was a quilter and a
Mm.
seamstress, and her mother was also. And so I just got it honestly, I guess, with
Hmm.
that. And that was such a joy because I was so into making my own clothes and fashion and modeling, and I wanted to be a fashion designer. I ended up going to college to study fashion design, but I changed it to fine arts.
Hmm.
And from there, I ended up becoming a graphic designer in my career, a graphic designer and a production person on magazines. So I worked for several different magazines, and none of them were glamorous, actually. Most of them were like, The Crisis, it was Emerge, US News, but I
Mm,
still
okay.
had my fashion desire all in there, no matter what I did. Yeah, so that's what I ended up doing. And I became a doll maker as well.
Hmm.
And so I would make dolls and sell them at fairs, and they were in some stores, and I made them for family and stuff like that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. So how did you end up doing the Rag Baby Exchange part of your designs? How did you start that community?
Yeah. So since I loved working with dolls and fashion, I started wanting to do some work at museums. So I volunteered at the Anacostia Museum of Art in Washington, D.C., was the only Black one at the time in
Hmm.
Washington, D.C., Black museum.
Hmm.
And so they had a show that was quilts and dolls and some watercolor paintings, but most of it was textile. And I was asked to do a workshop for kids that were coming from school as they would
Hmm.
visit, and we'd have to do a workshop. And it was different people doing workshops, but I was doing the doll making one. And as I was doing the doll making one, I noticed that all these kids were, it didn't matter if they were brown, black, white. Everybody
Hmm.
wanted what was famous on television as beautiful: blonde hair, blue eyes,
Hmm.
light skin. And
Hmm.
again, while that's still attractive, none of these kids had that.
Mm.
And it was unusual that all of them were picking this over the dark ones because I had all colors of
Hmm.
doll bodies created for them. And so I started asking kids if I could help make the doll look like them. I would, they were apprehensive. I would say, I love your hair. Can I like make
Hmm.
it look like your hair? Can I add barrettes like yours? Can I, like with a boy, I know I like put a basketball shirt on him, and
Hmm.
he was really excited. But what I noticed after we created this doll, that each kid, and I'm not saying just a few, I'm saying all of them who actually were allowed me to help them, they were looking at their dolls as if they'd never seen themselves this beautiful before. It was like they saw
Wow.
something they never saw. And so that had me thinking
Mm.
about how I could help more kids. And so I
Hmm.
started studying, how can I help people with self-esteem, because I know it's not something that's just learn it. It's something that you have to, do for yourself and
Hmm.
continue to do. And I just started studying all kinds of ways that self-esteem would help. And I realized that I was like, wow, this can help women because it helped me. Like I
Hmm.
needed it, right? And so I just put in all of these steps that I thought would really help you learn to care for yourself, learn to love yourself, not only accept yourself as you are, but accepting yourself, but also growing yourself.
Hmm.
And it has proven to be a really great thing.
Hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's really important too, not just not the fact that you said not just accepting yourself, but also accepting and growing yourself.
Yes. Yes.
It's funny. I know when we were doing the Big Beautiful Dolls, because they were the first plus size fashion dolls, right?
Yes.
For me, that was the key part of that. It was about them finding and looking at themselves and saying, okay, this is who I am. And yes, I may want to change and I may want to grow, but I still have to
hmm
love where I'm at. I
Right.
still have to
Yes.
love who I am, because this is what I have right now, presently. And it's not about that you can't change it. It's not about you can't grow it. It's just about loving all of those processes, you know what I mean, from the beginning.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that you said that when they saw the dolls, they looked at the dolls for the first time like they've never seen themselves.
Yes.
That's really, really powerful. That's
I think
how did
so.
how did that make you
Right.
feel?
Actually gave me goosebumps because it made me feel like I was that child too, that could have helped me. Like it was like, wow, I didn't expect that to
Mm-hmm.
do that for them. And so that made me really want to do it more
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt like wouldn't want anyone not to realize that they are beautiful as they are. They're here, and that means that they're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? And that they're
No.
divine enough to accept who they are. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's
Yeah.
but that's also taught as well, right? That's also a process
Yes.
to learn, to learn and understand that. Um, when you were doing, I know you said that you created dolls before. Had you created dolls like this, like the ones that you were doing with the children before, or did you create different types of dolls?
So I did do some paper mache dolls,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done some dolls, like I'm looking at one over there, out of like pieces of wood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but mostly they were fabric dolls because I
Okay.
was making rag dolls,
Mm-hmm.
hence the name Ragbaby. Yeah. So it was, and the name came from like, rags to riches. Like
Mm.
you were this, but you're beautiful, So yeah,
Okay.
that's why I was doing rag dolls. Yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. So now when you
hmm
do the workshops with the children, because we there's dolls that are used for everything, and we know dolls are definitely important, I think, in therapy, because
Yes.
it does allow a child to not just play but to explore and to be able
hmm
to share with people. And they use them if children have been abused or things like that, and have them talk through the process or whatever it is. But how do you see your dolls in the Ragbaby Exchange helping children within their self-esteem? What does that look like for them when they're doing these dolls?
Well, what it looks like for them, and one thing I would say is I have a workshop called Raising a Superhero that I use for kids mostly. And this thing is so amazing because kids are pretty accepting of other people, but yet they are watching other people and they're watching what you're saying. Like you may never say to any child, you're not attractive, you're just ugly. But you can say all the time, oh, so and so's daughter is so pretty, her hair is curly, her skin is light, her eyes are light. Oh my God, I just think that child is so pretty. And this other child is sitting here going, mm. So
Mm,
also the same thing with superheroes. Like they're seeing all of these individuals morph into these superheroes and they're not realizing that they can be their own. So I
mm,
created Raising a Superhero because I have a little guy in my life that was my grandchild who was very, very shy. He was so shy, but one day I was taking him to a party, which was his cousins on a different side of his family,
mhm,
and he didn't know them very well. And he was like, I don't, I'm probably not going to go. And I'm like, But I bought you a cape because this is a superhero party." He's like, "You bought me a cape?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was just a nondescript cape. It didn't have any superhero on it." So he put on this cape, he put on this mask, and he said, "Okay, I'm ready to go now." And I was like, "Okay." So we went, and I asked him, it was sort of like May or April, and I had the window down in the car, and he was in his car seat, and I was like, "Are you cold?" And he's like, "No, superheroes don't get cold." So I was just like,
Mm,
"What happened?" Like he just transformed just from this
transformed.
cape, right? So what I thought about was how I could make them understand that they are their own heroes and they
Hmm.
don't need a Superman. I mean, okay, I like all of them. Of course, I love Black Panther, but they are their own, right? And so I started doing a workshop where I would help them understand about bullying and that a lot of bullies aren't paying themselves
Hmm.
or that even what they're saying about people, how it hurts them. We do this whole exercise where we create a person and we tear the person down and we try to put the person back together again. And
Hmm.
then we show that even though you may say, "I'm sorry," that person still could be broken.
Hmm.
And then we start to create a doll of ourselves. And as we create the doll, we're creating the doll from our soul outward. And
Hmm.
so I help them to release negative self talk about themselves, about things they've said to other people,
Hmm.
or things that people have said to them. And I help them to forgive that and replace it with a positive affirmation.
Hmm.
And with these affirmations, I help them write. Sometimes they're young, so we just use one word.
Right.
Or
Hmm.
I'll just be like, "I'm powerful, I'm
Hmm.
smart, I'm
Hmm.
loved." And we stuff those into this doll.
Hmm.
And as we stuff those into this doll, we are talking about the fact that we are filling ourselves with love. And so that is a real powerful moment for them because they are feeling like in this little piece of cloth, they're making it the magic that they are. And
Hmm.
so I think that exercise alone helps them to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was already like into that already. We're talking about it 'cause it's something that
Thank you.
it's something that me. Like I think we all struggle with, our own
Yes.
belief of who we are. And the reason I said I love this part about what you do is that I've been into words for so many years, and words really shifted how I felt about who I was, because I never thought that there were certain characteristics that I owned of who I was, and I had to use words to help me get past that for myself. So
Yes.
I definitely think it's really important. I do. And I was listening to one of your other interviews, and you mentioned something about the fact that affirmations are great, but we also have to understand that it's a process too. So it's not,
Yes.
even though the words can definitely create energy around that, you can't just leave it at that word, and you have to be
Right.
able to. So talk a little bit about that, and talk a little bit how that works with children. I mean, I understand maybe adults may understand a little differently, but how does that work with
Hmm.
children when they put a word in there? How do you talk to them about either using that word or the process of how that works for them?
Yeah, so sure. So what I do is after I have them actually write down these statements or words that hurt
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
And we do a process of getting rid of them. And we tear them up, and I make sure that when they tear them up, that if they drop any, they have to pick them up because that's like kryptonite, right? So you should see them. They're so cute. They're like, "Oh my God, don't let any little piece
Don't.
fall." And so we're trying to get them in the trash and make sure. And if one falls, they're like running to get it. Oh no. So that's really cool. I love
Hmm.
when they're getting that, and
Hmm.
so then we rewrite these statements into these affirmations.
Hmm.
But I have them say them, and I have them, look into a mirror, and I have
Hmm.
them say them to themselves. It's very hard for some of us to look into a
Yes.
mirror,
Mirror
like
work.
on Zoom. It's
Mirror
very
work
hard.
is challenging.
Mirror work is challenging. And for them, I just give them a short amount of time of doing the mirror work. But I have this little trick where I have them blow bubbles. Like one, two, three, I am powerful. Like have everyone say all
Hmm.
of their different ones at the same time.
Hmm.
So that way you're not concentrating on anybody else, but
Hmm.
the energy is being lifted in the room, right?
Hmm.
And you can hear all of them together, especially if I'm doing a school where I
Right.
have like 20 kids at the time.
Hmm.
And And so after they do that, then they blow the bubbles at themselves in the mirror. There's giggles, there's laughter. Then we go 1, 2, 3, next statement. I am strong, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So then we blow the bubbles again, and it's just laughter and bubbles everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of this is because when you say an affirmation, you can't just say it like it's
Right.
rote. You can't just be like, oh, I'm beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there are times when that might be the only way you can get to the
That's
next
right.
step.
Exactly.
But to get to the next step is to feel it. You have to feel
Yes.
the energy of
Mm-hmm.
this. And the more you say it with feeling and you're laughing and you're happy, the more it becomes
Mm-hmm.
believable for you, for your
Right.
mind, for the universe to catch on that this is
Mm-hmm.
what you mean.
Right.
And so this is how I help them to
Mm-hmm.
not just say it as rote, but
Right.
to find a way to laugh and be happy when
Mm-hmm.
they're saying it.
Right. And I think the fact that, you do incorporate that into the dolls, right? The dolls then become that a statement piece for them, that thing that they can look at and say, okay, this is what I created with this doll. When I was creating this doll, this is how I felt. So
Their
that
love is
doll,
in there.
yeah, so your love is in there. And
Yes.
so I created this, I filled this with love, and now I can use this doll and I can play with this doll and get that same energy because it's something that
Yeah.
connects them to something that's powerful, which
I
is
had
part of themselves.
I had a 16-year-old say to me that, well, tell the whole audience because she did not want to make the doll because she's 16, but she was actually in a juvenile detention center where I did a
Hmm.
workshop. And so she had to do it because it was mandated and did it and said at the end that she didn't want to do it. But what she realized is as she was stuffing these affirmations into the doll, she said nobody had ever put love inside of her and that
Wow.
she wanted to make sure she would put love inside of her daughter. And that just blew me
Mm,
away. Like I still get
wow.
chills, like
I
I'm
just
getting
got a
it now.
chill, literally just
Yeah.
got a chill too when you said that.
Yeah. So I was like, that is everything. That means
Wow.
everything to me that she felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've had I've had older people and senior citizens say this as
Mm-hmm.
well in different ways, but
Right. Right.
when she mentioned that, it touched me a lot, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought, then this work is really
Yeah.
good.
I'm
Yeah.
so I'm so I I'm
Yeah.
so excited. I am so excited about what you do, and I can't wait to talk to you at a different time because I have
Okay.
so many things I would love to work with you on with this because
Okay.
I think it's just really
Thank you.
powerful. I'm just excited. I'm excited that that children get an opportunity to be able to build self-esteem through creating these dolls that you bring them. I want to talk a little bit though too about we've had doll tests run about how we feel
Yep.
about
We
ourselves for
certainly
years.
have.
Okay.
Yes.
Even back when they did the first one, we've had at least several other doll tests run, and we have the same,
Same
it's the
exact.
same exact
Exact.
outcome.
Yes.
uh,
Oh my
so
goodness.
so
Yes.
and we talk to a lot of people on in the doll world about the dolls that they create, and they all come from different places on why they create them, but we know one of the things is always about representation.
Yes.
Always that's the key to the majority of the people who come on and say, I wanted a doll because I wanted a doll that looked like that, either something I didn't have when I grew up, or I wanted to see a doll that looked like that because I never saw it, but to offer an opportunity to have representation. And so, what I want to talk to you about, especially since you deal with children, is the connection between Black dolls and the lack of self esteem, right, that we
Yes.
have, and the fact that we now have a good amount of Black dolls out there, a good amount of
Yes.
different options, but still we keep coming up with the same outcome. And I think it is getting a little bit better. I really do. But I do still feel that there's an interesting connection between Black dolls and self esteem.
It
And
totally is.
okay. And you are
Eh,
doing this work currently, so
yes.
you still
Yes.
see and so talk about what you see and why do you how can that, I don't know, I want to say how can that change, but you know what I'm trying to say. I
Right.
don't
No, I feel you. So listen, from the time I started doing this, I usually have 5 to 7 different fabric colors that represent our colors in the rainbow.
mm-hmm,
You know, from really light
mm-hmm,
Muslim to really dark. There have been times when I've even had a black fabric, which
mm-hmm,
never does well. so we stopped
Wow.
featuring the black fabric. But I do have a very dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I come, I often, now before COVID, I always bought, like say I had 20 people, I bought like maybe 30 dolls,
Mm-hmm.
all different colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I would literally let people just pick their
Right.
dolls and not
Right.
say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm speaking of kids, but these things happen with adults as well.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're speaking of kids. So I'll let them pick, and when they get back to their seat, and maybe the last person didn't pick yet, and she could be my color or darker,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have a dark doll, and I could have a white doll left. Almost always, da da, the white doll she
Mm-hmm.
chooses, and I
Wow.
let them pick it. But then I make it an opportunity to have a discussion after everyone sits down. Let's talk about color. Let's talk about why, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we would choose colors that weren't close to ours. And then some people would say things like, well, none of these really match my color. And then I have to explain to them, well, it's fabric, so it's a representation of your color.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to choose a white doll when you're dark, why? Now, I honestly will tell you that it has been times when I've had white people choose brown dolls and I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
question it. And I felt like I
Mm.
didn't question it because I already feel like they understand that they are worthy and that they can choose whatever they
Whatever doll
want.
they want.
And
Right.
I'm honored that they would choose brown because they want to choose
Mm-hmm.
that because they
Right.
think it's beautiful.
Right.
But with black and brown children, I don't let it slide.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have a conversation and I will not push anybody because I'm not going to push anybody and make them, feel isolated
Feel right.
or, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Most of the time, I have been able to get them to choose a color closer to them. Not all the time, but I would say
Mm-hmm.
90% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
because the conversation always goes to, well, people say
Mm-hmm.
that that's black and that's ugly. I look
Right.
like an African, and I have to really question that. Why is that a derogatory statement? Why is
Right.
that making you cry? I
Right.
have to ask them, and I have to explain to them that Africa is a continent and
Mm-hmm.
that all people are different and all people are beautiful just like we are here.
Right.
Um, and I have to explain to them that these are things that you've heard in the media, in films,
Mm-hmm.
and you've heard other people say, including black people say, because they were taught by the same
Right.
media and film that you were
Right.
taught and by the same powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
So I often get them to understand that. One time I was actually in Cuba and we were at a Afro-Cuban
Mm-hmm.
doll workshop, and I was one of the doll makers and guests there and teaching some kids. And I asked a little boy who was brown, why did he choose the white doll? And he told me because this doll represents peace and purity. He said Blanca represents peace and purity and love. And I said, why doesn't brown, I mean, you're brown, so
Mm-hmm.
why don't you? He's like, no, I just, because this is more peaceful. And I said, but I want you to choose your color and then put the clothes on it that's peaceful. So he was like, I just feel like the white is more, then I explained to him, and I really had to explain to him that you are not, I don't know how we got on this conversation, but I said, you are not a slave. Your family were not slaves. They were enslaved. They didn't come from the continent as a slave.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I said that to him, something clicked in him because he didn't realize that we were not a people that were just bad and
Mm.
that black was just bad. I
Just
mean,
bad.
yes,
Right.
black is a color, but he was
Mm-hmm.
equating it to people and the
Mm-hmm.
the negative connotation of all black
Right.
people.
Right.
And then when I said that, it really, I mean, it was amazing. His eyes got big, and I mentioned that, there were lots of kings and queens. He was honored. And then he was like, "Oh, okay." It was like he'd never heard it before, and that just blew me away. And I was like, "It's
Mm-hmm.
not just here; it's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere."
It's
And
everywhere. Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
that part is hard. I like that the doll making, when it's done, when you see all the dolls together, there's such a variety of beauty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while everybody's not an artist, every doll still comes out beautiful
Still
because
comes
it's
out
just,
beautiful. Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
just free enough to just
Mm-hmm.
let go,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids once they start to create, they have no inhibitions about
Right.
if something matches or if
Right.
something.
Something doesn't. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That's
have
true.
no problem with them being
Mm-hmm.
amazing creators.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Hmm.
Now, how do you what kind of, I know you were just talking about the skin, I mean the colors that you use, the fabrics. What do
Hmm.
you use for hair? Do you have different types of fabrics for hair? What do you offer them?
So, yeah, mostly it's yarn, and there's all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of really great yarns now.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, I did use some weave hair,
Okay.
and it just for teenagers, it just caused like they just rush to like take it. It's none is left for the other one. So I stopped using weave hair because I
Okay.
just felt like it was just becoming an
Yes.
issue of who
Mm-hmm.
wanted what. So I found all kinds of yarns. They got loop yarns and
Mm-hmm.
straight. I mean, the yarns are great.
That's
So I
great
use
too.
different kinds. Hmm.
Yeah, that's great too, because I think it gives people obviously another chance to see the different fabrics, that you can use. And you don't have to,
Yes.
like you said, just stick with hair. You can use yarn to create hair. And the fact that they have such a
Yes.
wide variety now and so many different
Yeah.
colors too, I think that's really helpful.
Textures and
Yes.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So,
really,
I
really
mean, there's
cool.
some yarns that look like locks, some that look like curls. It's
I
just a
love it.
great, yes. Hmm.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. You finished talking about the process that the children go through when they're doing that. I know you said you offer two programs. So you mentioned raising a superhero program, and
Yes,
then you have your inner doll workshop. Now, is the inner
yes.
doll workshop the one that you mentioned before about putting in the affirmations, or you do that in both of those, and why are they different?
So I do that in both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Raising a superhero relates to children where they are.
Okay.
That's for children that are elementary to maybe fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, because that's really like, we don't spend a lot of time on writing affirmations. They could just use a word that's
Right. Mm-hmm.
powerful. We also do the bullying thing. And so we also create capes, and we ask them what it is they like to put in the world. What is it that they would like to help somebody with? And
Mm-hmm.
then I ask them, what do you think you need for that? And then they'll give me ideas if they need a cane, if they need a, I don't know, all
Right.
kinds of things that
Mm-hmm.
they might need. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we try to create that. And then they actually get a surprise at the end. A lot of them don't know that at the end they're going to cross over into the acronym ROS. So we're going to cross over into Roslyn. And at the end of that, I give them a special gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfect for the kids. So your inner doll workshop is pretty much, your inner doll workshop is the first workshop. Raising a superhero came out of that
Okay.
for young kids.
Young kids.
And
Okay.
so we're doing pretty much the same kinds of things. We
Mm-hmm.
don't deal with the bullying part of it, but
Mm-hmm.
we also, after we have done our affirmations and we have stuffed our dolls, we also do parts. I can arrange the workshop, like if we want to make concentrate on healing. If we have a
Mm-hmm.
group of women that want to concentrate on healing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's a breast cancer survivor group, maybe it's just people who have different ailments
Mm-hmm.
or things they want
Mm-hmm.
to heal from, or if it's about ancestors. So
Mm-hmm.
after we have stuffed the doll, then we will do a bit of a meditation on
Mm-hmm.
healing. And I like
Okay.
for people to find a space on their body that is in the
Mm-hmm.
pain, even if it's not a physical pain. It could be your heart, like hurting, it could be
Mm-hmm.
your brain, it could be all of those things. We find that space, we put either a flower there or a heart there, and we
Mm-hmm.
hold it there, and we thank this thing that is giving us the issue,
Mm-hmm.
and we thank them for helping us to notice it and create the change that we need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we bless it. We bless it with a flower.
Mm-hmm.
We meditate on it, and we let it go.
Okay.
And then we go on to the next step to create the next thing.
Okay.
So we have all kinds of different little exercises that we do while we're creating the doll.
All right, that's pretty cool. I like that too. But I like about that too is that you introduce other things into that. Like you said,
Yes.
meditation, things like that that can be introduced into an environment to help people deal with stress or all
Yeah.
other things in their
Hmm.
lives too, which obviously will hold you back from feeling empowered, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I think that's
Hmm.
I think that's really really great that you do that. Now I know that a lot of your workshops were done in person
Hmm.
before COVID.
Yeah.
And now that we're in COVID, how has that? I'm going to say we're still in it.
We
Okay,
are.
so we're
Yes, we
still
are.
in it.
Yeah.
Um, how has that really changed? How you are moving the Ragbaby Exchange forward, and how has it put you behind? How have you dealt with that, with the ebbs and
Yeah.
flows of that?
So it actually put me behind, but it actually made me pivot. That
Mm-hmm.
has set me on
Mm-hmm.
a positive plight, right? So at the beginning, I did a lot of online meditations
Mm-hmm.
and without the dolls, just like a lot of meditation. And it was really crazy because people were asking me to do meditations, and I was the doll maker, but I guess it just really related because we
Right.
did these things in the workshop. And then I did do a workshop because I couldn't wrap my head around how to do the doll making workshop and get
Mm-hmm.
all the supplies. So I ended up doing a doll called the Abayomi doll. And the Abayomi doll is a doll from the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
Most of these people were going to the Caribbean or going from the Caribbean here. It was mostly like a bit of a African Caribbean thing, but it
Mm-hmm.
also came to the United States as well, where what they would do is they would, if a child was taken away from their mom or father or whatever, they would take their clothing and they would make strips of fabric, right?
Okay.
And they take
Mm-hmm.
these strips of fabric and they would make knots to create a doll. And in making these knots, as they
Mm.
were making each knot, they would put in a prayer or affirmation or
Okay.
some kind of healing thing. And it would be
Mm-hmm.
thoughts that while they were doing it. So when they finished, they had this little doll that was like a protection doll and it fit in the palm of your hand, but it was
Mm.
a rag doll. So that
Okay.
you could hold it and you could put it in your pocket and
Mm-hmm.
you could give it to the child so the child would feel comforted or the parent would keep it or you would give it to your loved one. And so I use that doll because of my own affirmations that I do and the power of meditation. So
Mm-hmm.
we did a lot of Abayomi dolls during that time, workshops, and I combined it with another friend of mine who does aroma therapy
Mm-hmm.
meditation. And we created little packages with the strips of fabric and then some oils and scents.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just went through the process of creating the dolls. And during that time, I realized that I had always wanted to do a nice little box for my own doll making. And I created that box during that time. I created
Okay.
a box that can be a subscription box. Actually, it is about to be that
Mm-hmm.
soon. But the box has all the things you need for creating the doll,
Oh, nice.
but I would still do it online with you. And I
Mm-hmm.
was able to create that box. It has a little mirror in it, everything, so that you can follow the steps or the directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I put all the information in it. I shrink wrapped my stuffing
Mm-hmm.
and got that in there. And I ended up doing a lot more workshops with schools and
Nice.
girl organizations
Mm-hmm.
and some women's organizations and some churches. So I was
Okay.
able to do that. That's how I pivoted. And that pivot has caused me to be able to use that now for my subscription boxes,
Mm-hmm.
which will probably be maybe 4 times a year with different
Mm-hmm.
themes.
Okay.
So yeah.
That
And
is
that would be,
beautiful.
thank
Oh,
you. And it'd be based on some of the places that I've gone to do the workshop.
great. Well, that's a great opportunity, like you said, to be able to figure out how to pivot, to
Yes.
to keep
Yes.
what you do alive, and be able to share that with other people.
Yeah, that was very hard at first, and then one day it just was like, bing, oh yeah, let's do that. So, I designed it and
Mm-hmm.
sent it and had it made, and it took so long. I was just like, oh my goodness, I have to figure out the way. Then I realized that the reason why it was taking so long is that everybody was doing a subscription box at
Right,
this time during
exactly.
COVID,
Yes,
and
that's
they were
true.
behind. Yes.
That is
Yeah.
true. That is true. So, since you've pivoted and you made other changes within the Ragbaby Exchange
Yes.
organization, what are your goals for the next 2 to 3 years in for a Ragbaby Exchange?
Yeah, so my goal for the next years is to uh, get more donations because we are a nonprofit. Like, do more opportunities for donations
Mm-hmm.
and um, have maybe sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
The next few months, I'm working on a healing from colorism workshop. And also for myself personally, I have some dolls that I think I've sent to you that are about healing from colorism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really working on a few things, a garden, posters, public
Mm-hmm.
service announcements,
Mm-hmm.
all. I'm just trying to really get that done because I feel like not only do we need a healing our whole country and our whole world from so many things, we also have this thing that is generational
Yes.
healing
Yes.
that I think colorism is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, colorism is directly related to racism. But I think that we have to change our consciousness and really work
Mm-hmm.
on that. So that's a big thing for me. That's what I want to work on.
Okay. Well, I mean, and as long as I mean, you're going to do that through your dolls too. So I think
Yeah.
it's going to be it's amazing work anyway. I think when you can use dolls to help to enhance somebody's self-esteem or to help them feel better
Yeah.
about themselves or to help them to heal physically and mentally. I think people underestimate the power of a doll.
I agree with you. I remember the question being to me a long time ago before I became a nonprofit, and I talked about it to a few people, and a couple of them would be like, "What are dogs going to do?" It's like, and they thought it was frivolous, and I'm glad I didn't listen to them because I wouldn't have gotten as far as I've gotten.
Hmm.
But it did bother me, so I had to use my own, methods on myself to
Right.
get me through.
To get you
Yeah,
through, right. But I
yeah,
think too that the more that you know how dolls have um uh how they have
affected people.
affected people and affected you in your life. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And just by sharing that, how you see how the transformation is when you have these dolls, not just for kids, but for adults too. Because I think
Hmm.
children learn from adults. And if you have adults that are not empowered
Yes,
or
yes,
understand their own value or worth, okay, then a lot of times, children suffer because of that. And
I agree. Hmm.
so I think doing this work with children and with adults through dolls, I think is just as powerful. Have you had any
Thank
mommy
you.
daughter type of workshops yet?
I have had some of those,
Oh, those
yes.
must be really
And
great.
sometimes, yeah, they're great. And sometimes you just have a workshop and they just show up together. It's
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, you asked me what do I see in the next 2 or 3 years is I do see the subscription boxes being
Mm-hmm.
really popular with themes like, you could get one box or you can get four. And I can
Mm-hmm.
see mommy daughter being one of the themes for the
Mm-hmm.
boxes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I could see
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. I mean, mommy
Yeah.
sons too. Now I'm a son. I'm
Yes,
a
for
mommy
sure.
son person.
Me
I have two
too. Me
sons
too.
and
I don't have any
a
daughters.
grandson. Me either. I don't have
Yes,
any either.
exactly with me. Yes.
And I because I think once men, I think once men and young boys understand women and girls, I think it makes for better relationships in general.
I think
I
that
think
that
that is,
is
it's really a powerful connection.
very important. And the other thing that I think that is so amazing to me is that little boys play with dolls.
Mhm.
And they're always,
Yes, always.
the men, well, I won't say all men, but a lot of the patriarchal society will be like they shouldn't play with dolls.
Yes.
And I also had an incident where I was teaching at the juvenile detention center. There were lots of programs that I was part of, and it was called Covenant of Peace. So they had a
Hmm.
lot of different programs. And fortunately, but unfortunately, I had taught a lot of girls the doll making, and these girls, fortunately, had left the juvenile detention center.
Mm,
But this whole event had been planned for a
mm,
while, and so there were maybe two girls left, and then, but they had already paid me for this event. I was already in the quell to be paid, and I had to
Right.
show up and do the work.
Hmm.
And so they looked at me and they were like, "You're gonna have to do boys." And I was like, "These are 14 to 20-year-old boys. What in the world?" And they have to go past a gaming truck to
Yeah.
come to the doll making workshop. It was traumatic for me. So I was in there and I said to them, let's think about, what you have said to your mom or your
Hmm.
girlfriend or some woman that you
Right.
really hurt that you want to heal.
Hmm.
I mean, out of like 12 boys, I got three. One halfway made his and left. The other two actually made theirs
Mm.
and came to me the next day at the whole event where, the mayor and everybody
Right.
comes, and said to me that they really enjoyed it and they want to give it to their mom. And that really
Oh.
helped me because I was struggling to, they were mad, they didn't want to do it. But I
Yeah.
always say that whenever, like if a man brings his daughter to a workshop or a fair, they get into it and they do a great job. I
Yeah.
just had
Yeah.
a grandfather bring his granddaughter on a grandpop and
Hmm.
me date, and he
Oh,
helped
that's so
her.
nice.
He even sewed. He was like he could sew better than some of the women, and they were like, "I don't know how to sew." He was so amazing. I've had other guys make dolls for themselves and do a
Hmm.
great job. So
Yes.
it's not for men. Your inner doll is for anybody. So I would just
Yes.
say that 90% of my demographic is women.
Okay.
But yes,
All
for
right. Well,
sure.
and it's so
Mhm.
funny. I mean, we have these conversations, especially on the show, and a lot of our doll designers and artists and creators are
Are
men.
men.
And I
Yes,
mean, from huge icons, you know what I mean, to
I
to
know.
to to just beginners. And I think it's a great opportunity for young boys and men to see that there is a field, there is a creative aspect of that, and
Yes,
also it's very and it's a connection,
it's a
because
connection for
it's a
sure.
connection, it's a connection
Yes,
making dolls. It's just a connection, whether it's fashion connection or a hairstyle
yes,
connection, whatever. But I
yes.
think I think it gives them an opportunity to see all the varied ways that they can participate in the doll community and in the doll world, even if they are
And
men, or
I so
boys.
agree.
So
And what I will say is that what I've learned from doing workshops is a lot of women, we are really concerned about things matching and what looks pretty and what, but I just like men just come in and go for it. They're uninhibited, like boys and girls. They just create these beautiful pieces
mhm,
because they're not worried about all the other stuff, you
right,
know?
right.
So yeah, I've seen beautiful things created by them like that give me ideas of what I want to put in my own doll making.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Sherri, for being on the show. I mean, you have,
Thank you.
I love what you're doing with your Ragbaby
Yeah,
Exchange, and I'm so
appreciate
excited
it.
that people will get to see what you're doing with your organization, and people are able to find you. So let people know where
Yes.
they can find you. So if they want to participate or sponsor or just help you out, I'd like them to know where they can reach out to you at.
Thank you. They can reach me at my website is ragbabyexchange.com. There was one that's .org, but that is not the one. It's .com.
Mhm.
And then you can reach me at Instagram at the Ragbaby Exchange, Facebook at the Ragbaby Exchange, and Twitter is Dolls Make Peace.
Oh, okay. That's nice. I like
Okay.
that. Dolls
Thank
make
you.
peace. That's pretty cool. Wow.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm gonna wish you so much success with this, and I'm so glad that you're able to show people how to love themselves and embrace themselves
Thank
through
you.
doll making, because I think that's so important. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you
in the
so
doll
much. I
world.
appreciate it.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome. You're so welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.